Hey, what's up? I'm hanging out with Rob on Front Row Live.
You've had a whirlwind the last couple years with lineup changes and events in the band. Can you tell me a little bit about, what kind of went on in the last few years?
Yes. Well, I think anyone that's in a band will tell you that it's tough to keep people together, especially when the project has always been mine. So, but that said, I've always felt more comfortable in a group and in a band and fronting a band. So, yeah, I mean, Heaven or Somewhere Between, the EP I put out in 2016, was mainly just a solo release with sort of session musicians on the studio recordings. And I love the guys I played with live, but they were definitely not in the band. And I think this is the first time in a long time that the band is very set. And we wrote and produced the whole record. And yeah.
Now, the fact that you kind of went through all that a couple times, what made you want to continue this as a full band project instead of just doing it solo like you did initially with just session guitarists and session members?
Well, that's simply how the record was made. And I really wasn't intending to have it that way, but I got into a room with Parker, Max, and Dave, and we started writing, and after 6 months it felt natural, and it was just sort of, there was only sort of one direction to go in. There wasn't really a thought of doing anything else because there was such camaraderie. And again, I've always felt I was a leader of a band, or I was fronting a band as opposed to being a solo act.
What is that like when you first go into the studio with someone new?
It's exciting. I think that sometimes you're in a room with new collaborators and you think on how you collaborate with people you've worked with for years, and it's kind of sad because when you're writing with someone new, any idea they have, you're like, oh yes, oh great, and you're really open to new ideas. Whereas if it's someone you've been working with for a while, they might say something like, I think you should go to the ride there, and to you, it's like, oh, he's doing that thing again. He always wants to go to the ride, or whatever. So like, it's in that way. It's really fun, and you're getting to know each other, and then after you start, when you continue the relationship, then those same things creep in where you have to open your mind, just because they want to go to the ride doesn't mean they're trying to make it this kind of song,
Right.
But so yeah, in the beginning it's really fun, and you're like testing the waters with each other. Yeah.
What about challenges? Like, how do you challenge each other in the studio when you're creating this new music, especially because 2014 was the debut album, so now we're ready for that sophomore album. So you want to step it up. You've grown a lot with your writing. You've matured a lot with your writing. So how do you challenge yourself when you go into the studio this time?
Yeah, I think often the members of the band challenged me with melodies or lyrics. Lyrics were so important to me on this record, and all of us. And I think, this record's very personal, and I think that took a lot of intention because the lyrics were getting a little bit vague and kind of just, and you justify it by saying, oh, well, it's a character and it's, some love story and whatever, it's fine, it works, it sounds good, it's catchy, and then you kind of have to like check yourself and be like, okay, what does this mean? Is there any meaning behind it, and just making sure that there's, true meaning behind it. And then other times, during the process, I would sing something and it wouldn't be good enough, but I would try and convince myself that it was, and they'd be like, can you just sing a new melody? And I'd be like, I like it. So if I like it, I'm not going to sing it again, But it was really me being like, I don't know if I could do something better. So like, so I'm glad that I always pushed through when I thought that I couldn't.
Right. And this time, mentioning that this is more of a personal record, is it safe to say that it was more of a natural process when you wrote these lyrics, or were they harder to actually put them to paper?
Well, once you kind of once you have a concept, I was talking about this earlier, but once you have a concept or like an angle that you're talking about, like there's one song about my parents' divorce, and that came very easily once I realized what it was about, because there's so many specifics and details that I can talk about, you know, whether it's like the color of the house we grew up in, or, you know, the shoes my brother used to wear, that would make it weird. And I think like a lot of times when you're writing lyrics, you're like, I just want a weird word. I just want something specific. And you can't think of anything but like, you know, I realized you were wrong. You know, you can't, it's like hard to get specific sometimes. So I guess your question was it more natural? I mean, once I got, you know, different concepts for each song, like the one about my, you know, my parents' divorce, or another one about like kind of just like an asshole, like man slut. Like once you get these concepts, then you can just go from there and it's easy and it becomes natural. Yeah. But that first initial part is hard sometimes.
What about your writing? How do you feel you matured in the last couple years, especially coming after the debut album?
I think I'm singing differently and more and stronger, and I think that affects the writing because I'm playing more with my phrasing, and again, I started with a lot of lyrics as opposed to melody this time. Once I deconstructed a lot of the songs and realized they needed more meaning, so you know, I'm like fitting lyrics into songs where it wouldn't normally be natural. I don't know. Yeah, if that makes sense. If that makes any sense, you know, starting with the lyrics and sort of like fitting that into melody and coming up with cool phrasing. Right. I don't know.
Now I want to take it back to the debut album, because there's a song on there, Cathedral, that I loved that you added saxophone into that. It, you know, it was different from everything else that you did, and I like that you did that. What made you want to add saxophone to a track like that?
I actually don't think that was my idea at the time at all. Yeah, I think that might have been Chad's idea. He was like, oh, we should add a sax. And I was like, really? I don't know. And then we did it. And I actually didn't like it at first. Really? Yeah, I was like, oh, I don't know. It's like kind of corny. But everyone loved it, and it grew on me. And I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. So to answer your question, I take no credit for that, because that was not me. Yeah, but I like the sax, you know. You
kind of also, you might have answered that you probably won't want to do that again on the new record.
No, we have a little bit of saxophone on a song, but I think when you put sax on a song, it kind of immediately categorizes the song into, again, this like 80s thing. And I think sonically, that's a reason that I don't want to super feature sax all the time, even though I like it, you know? So we have a song on the new record that has saxophone. It's called What You Want, but it's more blended into the mix as opposed to being like, oh, here's an 80s sax solo, you know? But I do like sax.
So is that something that you think about whenever, you know, you bring new instruments to a track? Is that, like you just mentioned, the sax kind of gives it a new vibe, a new genre, I guess. Is that something that you constantly think about when you're in the studio and someone says, hey, let's add keys here, or let's add, you know, a tambourine or something?
Yeah. Well, I mean, my rule is to try everything. Okay. So even if I'm thinking, oh, well, the sax might do this, I'm still, you know, it's kind of like our general rule to try everything, and then we'll make, because then you pigeonhole yourself. Right. You're like, oh, well, we can't use a tambourine because we'll sound like Brian Jonestown Massacre, or we can't, you know what I mean? We can't use a flute because you'll sound stupid. Like, once you start getting into, we can't do this because of this, then you get into a danger zone in the studio, because shoot down every idea, you know? Like, right. Yeah.
So tell me more about this upcoming Sophomore album. This is the first time you guys did it on your own. You guys self-produced it, correct? Mm-hmm. So, you know, what was that experience like for you? I mean, you're doing something different for the first time after releasing music for so long.
Super exciting, you know, and fun. And I really think I think the songs are good, and I think I'm singing well, but I really think that it sounds like very good 2018 pop, and we were very deliberate about that in the mixing process as well, like just incorporating our more classic references and, you know, like Roxy music and pulp, but really also making something that could compete and that's modern pop, because we listen to that stuff too, you know. And I think in the past I've been a little bit afraid of stepping into that zone. But I think we were also like, well, if we're going to self-produce it, we got to show people that we can you know, do it really well and compete, you know, and that was a fun challenge. But in terms of making the record, I mean, I've been kind of making the record since 2014, you know what I mean? So it wasn't.
You were already ready for it to happen.
Yeah, it wasn't one moment where I went to the studio for 3 weeks and it was done, you know. It was like, this has been a long time coming. I mean, we actually scrapped like 15 songs that I was making in LA. They just weren't working. And then I went to New York.
Why weren't they working? I mean, was it not the sound you wanted? Was it not what you wanted to get out to the audience?
Everything. I mean, I know I keep bringing it back to this, but lyrically, they just were not cutting it. The hooks were not good. They were very basic. And I think in the past, I would worry about the music and, you know, sonically everything was sounding, making sure it vibed. Right. And then the lyrics would be after. And now as I get older, I'm like, no, lyrics are first. You have to have like a weird hook and then you move on from there, you know? Because, and I think that was the big problem. And I just wasn't inspired in LA. I was working in my living room and I would go to my dad's studio, and I love my dad, but it was like in the house that I grew up in, and I was like, oh, I don't know about this. I don't, you know, I just wasn't, it wasn't very inspiring. I love you, Dad. It was nothing to do with you, you know, I really do, but.
So I Did It. This is the first release from this record. What was it about I Did It that you wanted that to be the first listen?
I think it has a very propulsive quality. It's uplifting, which are two things that I don't normally do, and it feels good. Like and I think the video does too. I think when you're watching it, there's like a joyous aspect to it, okay. You know, and I guess that was one of the reasons that I think we decided to go with it. And everyone else liked it, so I was like, okay, cool. You know, I mean, in the team, you know, like once you make the music, you let the people that work around you say, this is the one I like, or this is the one I don't like. Because you like all of them, you know? Right. So whichever one they think is a single, like, I'm cool with that, you know?
So is that kind of the same sound that we can expect for this new record, or can we expect a little bit, you know, something different aside from I Did It?
I think points get a bit groovier and a bit sexier.
Okay.
I think there's definitely a lot of sex appeal on the record. You know, I mean, I do think that. Like, I think it could be the soundtrack to, like, a very, like, Blow or something with Brad Pitt.
Okay.
But, yeah, other than that, big pop hooks and luscious music.
Right. Now, you once quoted, I think it was last year, you quoted that you were getting into Swedish music, Swedish electronic music.
Wow, you really know your shit, man. This is crazy.
Team Rocket being...
Cathedral, out of nowhere, like, wow.
Team Rocket being, you know, I don't know if it was necessarily an influence, but it was someone you were listening to at the time.
Yeah.
What was it about Swedish music that you were, you know, that really caught your attention, and especially Team Rocket?
Wow, I can't believe you're asking me this. You're like Nardwar right now.
Oh, that's the best compliment anyone can ever give me.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Yeah, one of the guys in my band, Max, he's kind of the most snobby about music, I would say. He'll laugh when he sees this because he is. In general, he is. And of course, he would always talk about this Swedish stuff that he listens to. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, please, like, shut up your ass, you know? and then I heard it and I was like, whoa, this is so next level. I loved it. And it was just, I don't know, it was just the vibe. It felt like a dream, you know? It was so vibey.
Even though you don't understand the lyrics.
That's what's cool about it, though. I always love music that's not in English.
Yeah.
Just adds a layer of vibe that it's almost unattainable. You know, I wish I could speak French so I could speak French in the music, you know? I love, like, Serge Gainsbourg.
Give it a shot.
Yeah. Well, one time, Max, the same guy, speaks Russian. We were thinking about putting some Russian in there, but I couldn't remember. It was, you know, I couldn't learn a new language for the song. So, but yeah, it was just so ethereal and vibey and, like, yeah, it was awesome. Feels like a Snow White dream, whatever that means.
Did that influence you at all when creating your music?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Especially more of the vibey tracks. You know, I think when you make pop music, you're always pulling from way more obscure references than you can do, and just taking little bits, you know. Right. That's why I always wonder when I listen to Team Rocket, I'm like, who are you guys pulling from? You're way cooler than I am, you know. But yeah.
That's awesome. Now, before maybe 2-3 years ago, Haley Williams would always talk about Kitten, and that's actually how I first found out about you guys. And you guys did a couple shows, if not a tour, with them as well. Going on a major tour like that, what did you get at? Like, what did you learn from such a big show like Paramore's?
I think you always learn a lot from a band, the band you're on tour with when you're on a tour like that. Right. You know, how, I mean, she wouldn't even sound check, you know, she would save her voice for the show, which totally makes sense. And it was just such a blessing, that tour. It really was. You're so excited for every night because those fans, there's like there's 500 people lined up at the venue, and then once the doors open, they just run to the stage, and then you go on, and it's like you're a rock star. You know, they just think, oh well, Paramore's playing, and they're before them, so they must be, you know, they must be big too. So that was super cool. I mean, as far as what I learned, I mean, I love performing on big stages. You know, so I think I learned a lot about crowd interaction, because I think when you're playing a big stage or a festival, that's a big part of how people view the show, right. Whether they felt involved or any sort of crowd participation really is, and that's hard to do without being corny, right. You know, and now I feel like sometimes I'll do some tricks that I learned in too small of places, and I think I make it awkward for people. But I'm just pretending I'm playing to an arena, you know, like. Right. But I think that's something I learned, definitely.
So now I'm curious how last night's stage was, because that's a really small stage.
I mean, I crowd surfed, you know.
How did you do that there?
I climbed. Actually, David gave me this idea. I just went up on the stairs, and I said, and you know, the fans know I'm probably gonna do something ridiculous. So they caught me. They always do. I'm never worried about that.
That's cool.
Even if there's 20 people, like, you know, there's 20 people and it's just me, so they'll catch me, you know. That's
real cool.
Yeah.
Now, what's next for Kitten at the moment? The single just dropped. The music video just dropped. Album coming real soon. What else can we expect for 2018? Maybe some tour dates?
Yes, definitely touring. We're going to be playing a big show in New York. A big show. The big number. We're going to be playing a show in New York at the Bowery Ballroom on March 2nd. Okay. Just doing a bunch of New York stuff this month. And then we have a tour that we haven't announced for June. So I'm not going to say it here because I can't, but it's going to be a good one. And we're playing South by too.
Right. So can we expect the album to drop maybe before the tour?
Yes, I would say. Maybe. I don't know. I hope. Yeah, it's soon. Like, I would say in the next 3 months, it'll be there. All
right. So for those music fans out there that don't know who Kitten is, how would you describe, you know, what Kitten's all about?
We rock balls. That's how I would describe it.
That's good. That's good. I like that. Well, that's it. Thanks for hanging out with me. You guys check out Kitten. New single is out now. It's called
I Did It.
And please check them out. Thanks for watching here on Front Row Live.